बृंदा सोमाया एक ऐसी आर्किटेक्ट हैं जिन्होंने अपने काम से भारत की पुरानी धरोहर और आधुनिक डिजाइन को एक साथ जोड़ा है। भारत के ऐतिहासिक स्थलों को संजोते हुए उन्होंने नए और मजबूत डिजाइन की दिशा में भी काम किया है। बृंदा का भारत से गहरा प्यार उनके हर प्रोजेक्ट में दिखाई देता है। काम में उनके पैशन और डेडिकेशन ने उन्हें एक अलग ऊंचाई दिलाई है।
One of the reasons I went into architecture was because of my parents and my sister. So when I was 6 or 7 years old, my father and mother took me to Bodh Gaya and Nalanda in Bihar. And I must have been just 7 years old. But when I saw those beautiful ruins over there, I decided I wanted to become an archaeologist. Eventually, of course, I became an architect. I guess that was the closest that I could think of. And last year, after many decades, I went back to Nalanda again and stood in the same spot where I stood when I was 6. And I was very glad that my life took the turns that it did, and I was able to become an architect. I studied at the JJ College of Architecture, which was a 5-year course. And at the end of it, I did not feel that I had all the learning and the knowledge to be what I thought was an architect. To me, an architect goes much beyond the technical knowledge that the architect may have. So I went to America and I did a master's degree over there. After I came back, I worked for a very short time in an architect's office, which I did not enjoy at all. Remember, it was the 70s, and of course I was the only woman in that office. And even if I had to get up from my table, I had to take permission from my boss who was sitting next to me. So it was no fun at all. Then eventually got married. My husband was in the army at that time. He's a cardiothoracic surgeon. And so we were moving around from place to place. So inspiration for philosophy comes from many different angles and points of view. One gets inspired not just by people. We get inspired by art, by music, by dance. So there are many inspirations. And in a country like India, which is so rich in its culture, my inspiration came from my country, to be very honest. And we have built the studio, SNK, now with my daughter Nandini, who's been working with me for the last 15 years as well. We have built from the Himalayas down to the southern tip of India almost, from Calcutta to the Gulf of Khambat in Kutch, through Jharkhand, through Madhya Pradesh. So we are built all over this beautiful country of ours. And India, of course, as you know, is a country that is made up of so many different geographies, languages, music, dance, food. So that's my inspiration. My country is my inspiration. Every project of ours is determined by where it is located. I have to study the land. The land must be treaded lightly, I believe. The land should not be demolished. So it's the land, then it's of course the client. What is the function of that building? Why have they come to you? What is their philosophy? What is their vision? And then the materials that you use. Where is it located? If I'm building in Uttarakhand, I don't want to use something that is available only in the deep south, because we have to be sustainable today. I have built a school in Vadodara, called Nalanda. And it's a school for almost 2,500 children and over 250,000 square feet. Nothing is air conditioned except the principal's room and now a computer lab. The reason why it is not air conditioned is because of the architectural design and the materials that we used. We brought in courtyards, even it was in brick, the parapets had punctures in it. There were jalis, there were lots of trees that were planted near the walls. The walls were doubly loaded and had hollow construction as well, so that air could be cooled between the two layers of the walls. These are the aspects that we talk about sustainability. And one last thing I'd like to say, which is very important, because one aspect of my studio is historic preservation. We always say we have 5 aspects: master planning, contemporary work, historic preservation, culture, and the city. These are the 5 verticals that we are very involved with. So for me, every project brings its own challenges and its own rewards. Some of the special projects I've worked on, we have done 1 million square feet in a 100-acre campus for Tata Consultancy Services in Indore, where we use the concept of the Narmada River to design the complex. So the entire complex is pedestrian and the cars are only on the side. So all these young engineers, BPO engineers and IT engineers, when they come out and they leave their computers, they're able to enjoy the greenery and the water fountains and things that we've created in the landscape. The other very special project is perhaps the reconstruction of an earthquake-devastated village in Kutch called Badli, which was totally devastated in the 2000 earthquake of Gujarat. So when I went there was nothing. The village was almost 90% destroyed. I had a client who believed in giving back. My mother always told me that we have to pay our rent on earth. And I believe that, and I believe my studio's philosophy is the same. So this client and I, they gave us corporate work, their other work where they paid us, and then in return, we also did these sort of jobs for them. We worked for a hospital for them and we did the reconstruction of this village. So the village itself is a long story, but we rebuilt the houses, working with the villagers, and then we built a school. It's a very small school, but it's a very special school for me. The third project is perhaps we're doing a lot of cultural connected projects like exhibitions. My daughter and I, we have just completed in Mumbai, the CSMBS, Mumbai and its people. And we curated and designed the exhibition. So we do a lot of galleries, museum-connected work, crafts work. We bring in crafts into our buildings as well. Another important project I would say would be the upgrading of Bombay House, which is the international headquarters of the Tata Group. And subsequently we did for Bharat Petroleum. What was different in Bharat Petroleum is they never had an art collection, and it was during the COVID. What we did was we located artists all over the country and we convinced the client to give them work so we could build up an art collection for them. So as I mentioned, we do a lot of historic preservation for the city as well, urban conservation. So within this fort area of Mumbai, we have conserved, restored, recycled, repaired and retrofitted many buildings. The St. Thomas Cathedral is of course one of them, and the cathedral schools themselves. Then we did the Old Yacht Club. We've just completed what we call Kodak House. So we have a very long list. In fact, often when I present, I show a map of the fort area of Mumbai, and I put red dots to show how many historic buildings we have been able to save, and other architects, of course, in the city of Mumbai. When I began my practice, we talk about the 70s, there were hardly any women in the field, and certainly I can't even think of many or any who ran their own architectural practice those days. Those days we were 10 women in a class of 60 or 70. Today, women are almost 50% of the classes in architectural schools. But what happens to these women? Those days they'd become invisible. And today I hope with technology, more opportunities in information, etc., they're able to sustain and stay on in the workplace. Because it's not enough for a woman to be just educated in architecture. She must be able to practice. I have always encouraged women construction laborers also. I introduced into my tender documents many years ago that the contractor had to build toilets for the women as well, place to stay, a creche, and then drinking water, perhaps one light at least, so that women could also work in this industry. Also, separately, I organized 2 conferences. The first one I did in 2000 was Women in Architecture. It was for women in South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and India. And it was a wonderful conference. And then in 2020, with my daughter, we organized Women in Design, which was an international conference of women in architecture and photography, because design is interrelated. It's not just compartmentalized. So we got women from all over the world, and we had a wonderful conference here in Mumbai. So it's important that people like us who have our own practice, that we have to encourage women not just in the design field, but also women in the construction field as well. My philosophy is not trendy, or it's not something that just happens suddenly. It is a philosophy of thought, expression, design over time. And that's the way we work. You know, we don't chase something that's trendy today and gone tomorrow, because that's not the way I think. I think the next gen and the coming gen, they're doing wonderful work in this country. They're very innovative. They have all the exposure that perhaps people like us had to fight to get. So now India is a global country. It's a richer country than it was. There's so much of construction going on. So there are no excuses now for young people to build up their careers. I'm not saying it's easy. Architecture is not an easy profession, and it's difficult in many ways. But I think they have a lot of opportunity, and they're doing great creative work all over the country. They have to keep their feet on the ground and bring the best architectural practices to India. Awards are important, especially when they are respected awards. Like I think JKAYA is a respected award because it's been there a long time. It has a credibility in the choice of jury, in the way I think awards are given. So I think it's very important and prestigious as well for people to win this. And I wish them all the best, and I hope it continues for many years. So I'm going to wrap this up with a short story which I always tell when I go to different educational colleges or when I give talks to young people. Often after I given the talk, they come up and say, what can we do? How do we get our first job? So I always tell them this story. There was a big fire in a forest and all the animals ran away. The only animal, if you want to call it that stayed was a little bird. And the bird kept flying to a little pool of water nearby and used to pick up little water in its beak and come back to the fire and try to put it off. So all the tigers and lions and all the other animals laughed at the bird. And they told the bird, you're never going to be able to put out the fire with this little beak of water. So the bird said, at least I'm doing my bit. So I used to tell this story and I told it to a group of students and then at a conference in Goa. And I thought that was the end of the story. And I told young people, go out and do your bit, however small it is. And the next day, I got so many letters in my email box from many, many young people, and they said, "Ma'am, this is an old traditional story, and you haven't told people the second half." So, the second half of the story was that the gods above were looking down at this bird flying up and down. And the gods felt so sad for the bird that they began to cry. And when gods cry, it comes down as rain, and the rain put off the fire. So it doesn't matter what you think is a small contribution, you don't really know what impact it will have eventually. So you don't work for the end result, you work for doing what you need to do at this moment.